Assalamu alaikum, my friends. Welcome back to another episode here where we're diving into the Quran year timeline. Now, if you remember from the previous episode, we built a clock, and the clock looked something like this. Take a look at this. We drew a circle, and we cut it in half, and we said that this is a 24-year clock. So we drew a 1, a 12 down here at the bottom, and a 24 at the top. Know your numbers. And then we said the rule of the 4 H's, of which we started 2. And we wrote Hira here, which is an H, and Hijra here at 13, which is an H. And what this does is it cuts the clock into half down the middle right here. Just ignore this line going across. This is the Meccan period, this entire half here, and this is the Medinan period here. 12 years on this side, 11 years on this side, and 12 plus 11 is 23, and those are the 23 years of Quranic revelation. Now, we said that the Prophet, peace upon him, he would meditate in the cave of Hira. He got his first revelation, and this started his period of Quranic revelation. By Quran year 12, he was worried that he would be assassinated because there was so much antipathy, there was so much kind of hatred towards the message that he was bringing that he actually migrated or performed a hijrah. That's what it means, a migration, and he migrated to the city of Medina, and that's where he finished his career. Now today what we're going to do is we're going to cut down this clock into quadrants and move on and do the next 2 H's. So I'm going to move these stickers right here. I think you guys get it, Mecca and Medina. Just for the record, if I didn't mention it before, throughout my book Revelation right here, and throughout the entire Revelation platform, we always use blue as Mecca and green as Medina. They're just 2 colors that we picked that I thought would be kind of helpful. So everything is color-coded. The entire Quran is color-coded. The Sirah is color-coded also. So what we're going to do right now, and I already drew this out, but just pretend like I'm drawing it for the first time, is you have this clock. You're going to cut it into quadrants. So we're going to take a ruler right here, and we're just going to draw a line here, cut this pie into 4 pieces, and we're going to number it. So this is 1 and 12. This will be 6 above the line, 7 below the line, 18 below the line right here, and 19 above the line right here. And we're going to now add the next 2 H's. So what are the next 2 H's here? Well, 1 H is going to go right here, above the line right here. So we're going to write in blue H. Okay, right there. And then the next H, I actually wrote it out right here, is going to go above the line right here, and I wrote it out to the side so we can fill it in. So these are the 4 H's. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 4 H's cut the circle into 4 quadrants. This H right here, it stands for Hamza and Omar. I'm just going to tell you what the H's are, and then I'll explain to you what's going on here. And this H right here stands for the word Hudaybiyah. Okay, so these are the 4 H's. H1, the first H happens your Quran year 1, the second H happens in 6, the third H in 13, and the fourth H in 19. Just know these, and now you're so far ahead of everyone else. Basically what happened, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, brought his message of Islam to Mecca. You have to understand, Mecca was a city in Arabia that was established by the Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, and his son Ismail, alayhi salam. And so when Mecca was established, and this is even mentioned in the Bible, the Valley of Becca is mentioned in the Bible. When Mecca was established, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he built the Kaaba, this house of worship dedicated solely to the worship of one God. And this is the religion of Islam. Right? The religion of Islam is really the religion established by Ibrahim, by Abraham. It's the religion of Adam and Noah and all of the prophets. Abraham really kind of concretized it and made it like, this is the Kaaba, this is a place, the house of worship. And what Abraham was calling for was not just worship to one God, but complete obedience to that God. And that obedience wasn't just in the form of ritual obedience, which is what a lot of people think of when they think of religion. It's really service to God through the service to humanity and to the service of all of God's creation, whether that's animals, plants, whatever it is, having divine attributes towards everyone around you, being merciful, being loving, being just, being kind, being gentle, all of these divine attributes, and we'll get into that in more detail. That's really what the religion of Islam is about, is worshiping your Lord who is so good to you by obeying him, by being so good to everyone around you and everything around you. So, the Prophet, peace upon him, is calling for this in Mecca. Now, by the time of the Prophet's birth, 2 millennia after Abraham, peace upon him, Mecca had become a pantheon filled with idols. The different tribes that inhabited Mecca after Abraham and Ismail, like the Jurhamites and the Khuzaites, and we'll get into all that later, don't worry about the names, they started bringing idols into the Kaaba, and by the time the Prophet was born, the Meccans, or the tribe of Quraysh, who were the people who lived in Mecca, so I'll often use the word Quraysh and Meccan kind of interchangeably, they became polytheists, pagans. They worshiped all different gods. They actually still believed in Allah as like this main god, but they had all these other gods who actually did like the day-to-day, kind of paid attention to the world, because Allah, this other higher god, didn't have, didn't care that much. He was just too far removed from the day-to-day matters, and so they worship all these kind of intercessor idols. And so the Prophet, peace upon him, came, like all the other prophets that came before him, and said, no, knock it off. What are you guys doing? This is not what we were created to be. We were created to worship this one God. And the worship of that one God, and the perfection of that worship of one God, is service to everyone else. Now the Meccans, they're like, what? What is this? Like, you're telling us that we're going to stop doing what our forefathers did? No way. Like my dad, you're telling me that like what our grandfather did was wrong? There's no way I'm leaving what my grandfather did. And this is a common refrain amongst the Meccans. You see in the Quran that I'm not leaving the tradition of my father, my forefather. And the Prophet's like, think about it. Use your brain. Think about like, what are you doing? These are just stones and statues, just like Abraham said. And so the Prophet, peace upon him, is calling them towards the worship of one God. And he's calling, coupled with that, is service to humanity. And a lot of especially the rich and the wealthy and the powerful, they don't want to take care of other people. You see that even in today's society. Like, you know what? Let them go buy it. I worked hard for what I have, and if they want it, they should work harder. It's kind of like this typical refrain throughout human history. And so a lot of the wealthy and the powerful are not having what the Prophet is saying. They want to diminish his stance. They want to kind of undercut him. And so they start calling him crazy. They start attacking his followers. And it gets so bad that by the Quran year 6, the Prophet, peace upon him, really is asking God, can you please give me some strength in my followers who will help the Quraysh back off? Someone who can really kind of just like give us some like strength. And Allah answers the Prophet with the conversion of two amazing people. One is Hamza, which is the first H, and the second one is Umar. Okay, may God be pleased with them both. Hamza and Umar, they convert. They go from like the enemy side to the Prophet's side. And once they do that, the Quraysh are like, whoa, 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 whoa. We cannot just keep just willy-nilly attacking people, because Hamza and Umar are on their side now. They're going to beat us up, right? And so these people really changed the nature of this first quadrant. So the first quadrant right here, and I call this quadrant 1, I'll just put a post-it note here, is the early Meccan period. The early Meccan period is a period of individual persecution. That all changes when Hamza and Umar convert. And when they convert, the early Meccan period is over, and then we get to the second quadrant, which is the late Meccan period right here. The late Meccan period is a period of group collective persecution. So if this is individual persecution, this is collective persecution. And this is a period of time where they just ban the Prophet, peace upon him, his entire family, his clan, to the outskirts of Mecca. It's a very difficult time. It's like a concentration camp where you cannot eat our food, you cannot trade with us, you cannot intermarry with us. If you're going to follow Muhammad, you're going to be on your own. And it gets so bad that by Quran year 12, the Prophet realizes that these people are after us. They're trying to kill me. And so the Prophet performs a hijrah, which is the third H, and he goes to Medina. And after the hijrah, we go from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2 to quadrant 3, which is now the early Medinan period, right? This is all the Medinan period, and this is the Meccan period. And here we have a series of battles that are being fought because the Quraysh are very unhappy with the Prophet. They want to end his growth. And so they get into these battles like Badr and Uhud and the Battle of the Trench and so forth. We'll get into all those details. You're going to know all of this, trust me, God willing. You're going to know this very easily. But all of this kind of warfare, this heavy battle, with the third quadrant like the heaviest battle, like the most stressful time. It all comes to an end when the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Quraysh come to a treaty. And that treaty is called what? The Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And this happened in Quran year 19. And so the Treaty of Hudaybiyah ends the early Medinan period, this really tense period of battles and wars, and it ushers in the final quadrant, which is quadrant 4 right here, which we will call, what should we call quadrant? What do you guys think we should call quadrant 4? All right, I can hear some of you guys saying this. All right, fine. Because you guys said so, we're going to call this the late Medinan period. Okay. Quadrant 4 is a late Medinan period, and this is the period of growth, peace, prosperity, finalization, perfection of the message. Okay? This is Quadrant 4. So let's take a step back. We've kind of covered a lot right now, and let's just review real quick. The Prophet, peace upon him, he was conveying the message for 23 years. Okay, so what we do is we drew a clock that was 24 years, 1 year longer, and we cut this clock into 4 quadrants. We numbered it 1, 6, 12, 18, right? And then we said the rule of the 4 H's, and the first H is the cave of Hira, which started the clock of revelation, the Prophet's journey, his career. And then in year 6, we had the second H, was Hamza, followed by Umar, right? And that ended the early Meccan period, the period of individual persecution. It ushered in the late Meccan period, which went from their conversions from year 7 all the way to 12, which is ended by the Hijra, which is the third H in this mnemonic. That brought in the early Medinan period, which is the period of the battles and all the developing of a young community, establishment of civic code, and so forth. And that tense time ended with the 4th H, which is the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which happened in Quran year 19. And that brought in the late Medinan period, Quadrant 4, which ends in Quran year 23, which is the death of the Prophet, peace upon him, and the finalization of the Quran, the completion of the Quranic message, and like we said, the farewell Hajj and the death of the Prophet. This right here, guys, is the fundamental basics of the Quran year timeline. And I guarantee you, if you understand this and know the 4 H's and you can explain this to someone else, you will probably explain to them more than a lot of people ever are able to understand, because already you know the major themes of how the Prophet's career was established over these 4. When I teach it to young students, I say it's like a basketball game, and there are 4 quarters to this game, and this was halftime, and you have to understand what was happening in the first quarter of the game. They were behind. In the second quarter, they got even more behind, so they had to kind of call a timeout. Halftime, they went to Medina, they regrouped, and now they're playing the third quadrant, and this is the toughest time where they're fouling and they're battling each other out and so forth. But finally, they make it somehow to the 4th quarter. And in the 4th quarter, that's when they take off and they succeed and they win the game. So again, the Sira, you can liken to a 4-quarter basketball game. This is the Quran year timeline. In the next episode, we're going to dive deeper into the specifics of each segment of the Quran year timeline. So it'll be one video for all 4 videos, and then we'll kind of recap all together. Finally, if you guys are enjoying this, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Let me know what's working for you. If you have any other mnemonics, I always love improving the system. And if you want to jump ahead, you can always go to my website, therevelationexperience.com. I have an absolutely free PDF for you where you can download the entire tutorial of the Quran year timeline, so you can learn it, master it, share it with anyone you want. And you can always get more information about my upcoming projects, the books that are coming out, specifically Revelation Essentials, which I'm super excited about, and we'll talk about in more detail in the next few videos. Thanks for being with me. I will see you guys soon. Assalamu alaikum.